Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Papé. I'm a Partner Technology Advisor at Microsoft, and Bytes have asked me to come and do one of their Wednesday webinars on the Microsoft Flexible Workstyle and our strategy for the desktop. So over the next hour or so, I'm going to go through this, and we'll have some questions at the end. There's a few housekeeping bits. So as I mentioned, we'll cover our Flexible Workstyle strategy around deployment, consumerization, and optimization of Windows 7. You're all muted, but please feel free to submit questions. I've got Kylie helping me here to take the questions and pass those on. And what we'll do is we'll keep the questions and we'll answer them at the end of the session. We're going to record the session, so this will be made available, and you'll get an email with where the link is. Please, if you can complete the critique form at the end, and then we can get back in touch if you want to learn more about the solutions that I go through. And as ever, for any of these webinars, just contact Kylie and she'll be able to help you through. So on with the presentation. So as I mentioned, I'm a technology advisor, so I speak to our customers and our partners around Microsoft Windows, sort of the future of our desktop, and what we mean by our flexible work style. And what I want to do is to go through where sort of Windows has come from and just explain a bit about its heritage to start. So it's actually going to be 27 this year. It was released Windows 1 on the 20th of November 1985, $99 with a free copy of Paint and Write. So you can see we've come on quite a way with the software that we provide. But yeah, that was released back then. And if I think back from when I got involved around Windows 3 and moving away from DOS to Windows 3.11, we've been on this journey. And all the time we've put an awful lot of effort. And speaking to the R&D guys at Microsoft, they talk about products being ready, after sort of 20 years. That's a typical lifespan or an evolutionary cycle. So we've put this amount of effort into Windows, and each time it's been growing and growing. So we're confident that the Windows 7 and versions to come are what our customers are asking for and suit the business need. So I'm going to go through a couple of things in this session. I'm going to go through, first of all, deployment options. And kind of why is that important? Why should I look at it? And also then optimization. How can I get the best out of Windows 7? So you can see the two things. So if you haven't already deployed, these are the ways of doing it. If you have deployed, then how am I getting the most out of Windows? So first of all, deployment. Why do we even care about how we deploy it? Because times where we would go and buy a PC from somebody, it would come with a copy of Windows on it. We would use it. We'd install our software. Maybe we'd image it. And that would be the way forwards. But this Dilbert cartoon kind of characterizes the change that you may well have in your organizations or that you see in organizations, that people are starting to be more tech savvy. They're starting to bring in devices from home. Nowadays you can go to Tesco's and buy a fairly decent laptop with your bread and want to use that. And if the infrastructure at work, if there's a lockdown, tied down PCs at work, people are starting to bulk at that. And we've done a lot to kind of help with that, or maybe to hinder it, by changing our devices. So we had a launch last year of actually getting away from these square boxes that we had as desktops and laptops and starting coming up with different devices. I mean, this isn't exhaustive, but by releasing these are the sorts of devices that people want to use for different work styles. So rather than having a desktop at my desk that I use and a laptop that I might leave at my desk because I'm a certain status, or I take it away and occasionally work on it on the sofa, then there are different things. So slates and tablets are being very prolific, along with PCs and netbooks. So these are devices that are kind of out there, and what we want to do is enable you to be able to take these on within organizations. Now that all sounds great. On one hand we've got all these devices from ourselves and from other people. So iPads are very prolific through accounts. We've got lots of people using tablets and slates from Android, and phones are also very, very prominent. And many organizations have done studies internally to ask, how many devices have you got? And the common answer is actually between 2 and 3 devices. Someone will have a work device, maybe a phone, and maybe a personal device. So that's great. We want to be able to take this on, but we need to balance this with security. We don't want sensitive data roaming out, and we don't want anyone just being able to get on. So we need to have a balance between taking on this consumerization as well as having security and control. So we've got 4 pillars around this, and this is our strategy to the consumerization and enabling these devices. So first of all, in terms of the devices, we want Windows to be the best. We write Windows to go on these devices, and we write applications to go on these, and we believe that the best user productivity experience is using Windows and with Windows 7. And Windows next, I'll cover that off very quickly at the end and talk about our strategy for that, but that's our strategy for moving forward with that. And Windows Phone, so we want to be able to give a common developer platform and a common use platform. So if you're used to using Office on your Windows machine, then a Windows Phone shouldn't feel that different. So a consistent experience between. How do we then manage it? That's through the use of System Center and our use of Intune. So these are tools that we can use to secure and to manage the environment and to make sure that data's not going wrong, missing, or devices aren't going missing, so we've got control of those. As I mentioned, productivity is a key part. So once we've got past the platform, users want to get access to their documents or they want to get access to communications. So we've put Lync and we've put Office and access to SharePoint within these devices. So I can have the same experience, a consistent experience across phone and desktop with our productivity suite. And then as I mentioned, the ability to create applications for this is within our native tools. So people who are used to developing Silverlight applications or HTML5 applications, with these they can write applications and our application marketplace is growing strongly. But as well as that, we also allow development on our platform, so people can write applications for Windows. So it's really taking the best of Windows and the applications and the user productivity forward, so we can match user expectations as well as the security of the enterprise. So I'm going to talk about deployment options of Windows. So as I mentioned, time were we'd go and buy a PC with Windows on it, and we would then install our software, or maybe re-image it and use our software on top of that. And and that is still a way that a lot of organizations do it, and there are good reasons for doing that. But with the advent of virtualization and with the advent of this consumerization of being able of needing to provide desktops and applications to devices other than just normal physical devices, there's also the ability to do virtual machines and to deliver machines virtually. So there's a kind of choice, and I'll go through these choices and pose some questions, and then you can see how this could fit within a typical infrastructure. Within our physical environments, System Center is where it comes in. Now today, that's via a configuration manager. Moving forward, that will be a role within System Center as a whole, and that's how our strategy for managing the physical desktop is through System Center. With regards to virtual, again, today, 2008 R2, we have remote desktop services for delivering virtual desktops. So we can deliver desktop as a service to Windows devices, non-Windows devices, and allow people to access applications and full desktops through there. So there's a choice. I'll cover off the physical one first, and then we'll go into the virtual one and explain why that's important. So first of all, as I mentioned, typically the customers that I speak to, the only time that they have a standardized desktop, if they have a non-well managed desktop, is the day that they bought it. And typically these machines would be all the same, even though the batch that you buy might be slightly different. And certainly with XP, if any of the hardware slightly changed, it meant we had to start having different images. And trying to keep the standard desktop the same when it's gone out into an environment was very, very difficult. Or it was very, very costly by using tools to manage it, and rolling out these images was very time-consuming, and the monolithic images weren't very flexible. And it was a little bit like painting a bridge. By the time you get to the end of one, you've got to start again. And what we wanted to do is really get away from this idea of doing legacy image management, of having desktops cast from stone every time you do it, and the only change that you want to do, you had to cast back. And I know customers who've got hundreds and hundreds of images just for different applications, and we really wanted to move away from that. So we came up with some improved image management and a way of deploying physical desktops. Now if you think of the components that go up to make Windows or make up a PC, we've got Windows itself. So we've got the operating system, the binaries that we need to get onto there. You have language packs, so whether you have to support different languages or it's just English UK, there are language packs that go in and provide an interface into the operating system. We then have drivers, so different drivers for different devices. Again, if you've got laptops from different vendors, you'll use different drivers across the piece. And then we go and release service packs, so those need to be rolled in. So again, those have to be another consideration of images. And any one of these changes, chances are that you have to recreate the image. And then any customizations that we want to do. So as I mentioned, typically in the past, if we changed any one of those, it would break. Now all we can do is to group these together into a workbench. And this workbench allows us to consolidate all of these parts together and to respond to requests as to what the client requires. So when a client comes along now, whether it's a laptop from Samsung or Toshiba or Lenovo or a desktop from HP or Dell, when the device requests an image or we want to cast an image down to it, the components are collected and sort of aligned at the right time. So we can get away with doing this idea of legacy image management. And this brings me on to sort of a swingometer that I talk to a lot of customers about, which is how do I, what are the options if I think of how to deploy this out. So if we kind of start around at 3 o'clock at my American colleagues call sneakerware, this is the idea of someone running around machines with a disk, putting a disk into a machine, booting it, building it, installing applications, going to the next one. And I guarantee if I gave everyone on this call a CD, we'd all do things slightly differently. So it's not very scalable. It's quite expensive, and it doesn't really allow us to, to move forward in a managed way. As we start coming round and we talk about scripted builds and legacy imaging, again, once we cast down images, we've got to recreate those, or if we've got scripted builds, we need to go and create them. So again, we kind of lack agility as we go around to there. Then as we come around to the automated installation toolkit, this is a solution accelerator that Microsoft provides. So this is, if you're not aware of solution accelerators, they are free bits of software written by a special team, the solution accelerators team, and they write software that in effect makes the adoption of our software easier. So part of that in the AIK is that tool bench in effect where we can use that and we can do what's called light touch installation. So it's starting to get automated. We have single image, but there's still some touch that we need to do. And then as we move around to System Center, again, Configuration Manager today, but System Center as a whole in the future, this is where we can start to get more automated and start to get more of the benefits. And also go beyond just imaging the machine, so roll out applications, which I'll cover as well later. So as you go around this from kind of very bad to brilliant, it's not necessarily that things will get more expensive, because I know that some people save an awful lot of money going for System Center because their sneakerware is very expensive. Also in terms of complexity, it can get simpler. Once Configuration Manager and System Center is set up, it's a case of things are repeatable and they work again and again and again. There's no variance, of which you won't get with kind of scripted builds if there's change in the script or especially that sneakerware. So kind of don't be afraid of going around to brilliant thinking that's a nirvana of expense, that actually it saves people an awful lot of money. So how do we do this with this, create machines in a repeatable way? We use something called task sequences. And this was something that took or was given an awful lot of development effort into the last version of System Center, that we can really, really drive the repeatable deployment and the running of tasks. So if you think about the tasks that you have to do to deploy a desktop, if you were to walk up to a desktop, capture the settings, you'd probably try and copy your settings away to a USB stick or a network space. So that's the same. We want to capture the settings that are there. So typically the profile. Then we want to reboot the machine and prepare it. So we want to start the machine and then cast a new image onto it. So we've taken the settings off and we've deployed an image. Bearing in mind we can get away with a single image or a very few number of images depending on what applications we want to roll out. But we don't have to have one per different hardware vendor. So once we've deployed that, we can replay these settings that we've captured. So we can replay back the profile, we can replay back custom dictionaries and pictures on the desktop and files and so on and so forth. And we can do this in a number of ways. We can either take those settings and copy them off to a network location, which is going to take time if there's a lot of files, but you've got a backup. Or we can do hard linking where we leave the blocks on the disk alone. So in effect, we leave the data on the disk as we re-image it. And then finally, we can install applications. So these are the things that that sneakaway example would do, but maybe slightly differently every time. This will run and have the same output again and again and again. And we have some customers who run this process every night in schools and colleges, where they want to take a machine back to how it was the day before. And some organizations just have it as if it's going to take me too long to troubleshoot this problem, I'm just going to roll it back and I'll just replay the captured settings and install the applications. So by doing this, I can add other things in as well. So I can go beyond just installing applications. I can configure the machine, roll out patches, and do a whole host of tasks. And because I'm doing this not one at a time, but I can do many machines at a time, I know a lot of customers who do their entire desktop migration in a weekend using this. So it's a very, very powerful tool with a consistent outcome. So that's the physical side of things, and that's how we can roll out physical desktops. As I said, they're not, it's still an option. They're not going to go away. They're still a good use for physical desktops, and I'll explain that later. But there's another option now, which probably definitely wasn't available 10 years ago. It could be argued was available 4 or 5 years ago, but certainly now it's getting more common, and people are looking at it for different scenarios. And that's providing desktop as a service or doing virtual desktops. So what do I mean by virtual desktops? If you think back to the last, the physical devices, and you think about the monolithic stack that we had, the image, if we take the client and the user, the two black boxes away, the desktop is made up of an operating system, so be that Windows XP and be that Windows 7, applications, so be those Microsoft applications or non-Microsoft applications, and then the profile, and this is sometimes called the persona or the user state, but the personalizations that you bring to a machine when you log in and make changes to applications. So these three components go to make up a disk, go to make up a desktop experience. And as I mentioned, if anything one of those changes, we can break the desktop. So we might release a patch, or a new application comes along, or a new user logs in, and any one of those things can change it and can break this stack. So with virtualization, what we do, quite simply, is we take those three components and we provide some tools and technologies that allow us to abstract those, A, from the hardware, and B, from each other. So the first one with the profile, what we do there is we do folder redirection. So that's been around for quite a while. And roaming user profiles, hybrid profiles, or mandatory profiles. So we look after the profile and we redirect that away as appropriate. So in effect, you can log into any machine and your profile will follow you around. The second part is around the application. How can we deliver the application without installing it? So we have a technology called AppV, Application Virtualization, which allows us to stream applications in. And again, I'll show you where that can be used. And this is great for application to application incompatibility. So if you want to run different versions of Office, 2000, 2003, 2007, 2010, then we can do that side by side with AppV. If, however, we want to run applications and stream them from a server in terms of just published applications, then we've got Remote App, which is really terminal services applications served over an RDP connection to a desktop. So in effect, I click on my application and it streams. So we've got some choices there, whether we stream it down to the desktop or we stream it from a server. And then the third piece of this puzzle is the operating system. How can we abstract this? So the first one is something called VDI, and VDI has been around for quite a while now. It's a well-known term, but it's not a well-understood term because it means a multitude of things. What we mean by it is a hosted Windows 7 VM running in a data center. So in effect, you connect to a copy of Windows 7 running on a hypervisor in a data center, and that's VDI. But there's also a choice there for session virtualization, which has been done for many, many years. Citrix have built a whole business on session virtualization, have done so for years, on top of our terminal services environment. So session virtualization is a great way of providing out the desktop abstraction as well. And then the third one is really for applications that aren't compatible with Windows 7. We have something called Enterprise Desktop Virtualization, which really harnesses virtual Windows XP mode of having a Windows XP machine running in Windows 7. So if you've got a Windows 7 project and you're trying to move ahead, and there's a couple of applications that just are not compatible with Windows 7 and it's holding things up, then Virtual PC and or XP mode and medv could be the way forwards to fix those things. So once we bring those back into this picture, we've abstracted these apart, and that means that I can swap the OS, I can swap the applications, and I can swap the profile. So I don't have to keep those things the same. So an OS upgrade could just be a case of changing the operating system. If the applications are compatible, that's fine, and maybe replace some of the profile. And what this allows us to do is to replay these parts. So in effect, the desktop becomes a service. We just consume parts of it rather than it being a physical thing that sits under the desk. Now, how do we do that today? That's done through, in effect, Windows Server. So presentation virtualization at the top left there is through remote desktop services, which is our new name for terminal services, and it is, in effect, a Windows Server with, with a tick box. If we then look at our desktop virtualization, again, I mentioned medv, so the serving of incompatible applications, VDI, Virtual PC to provide that XP edition, and MDOP, which is our optimization pack for Windows, which I'll go through as well. In terms of virtualization, we have our own hypervisor, Hyper-V, which comes with Windows Server. So if you've bought Windows Server 2008 R2, you've got Hyper-V. You can also download it as a free hypervisor as well from our website. And something that's is our strategy, what we've proved, and what we'll continue to do is to make sure that our workloads run best on our hypervisor. And certainly, Windows 7 has been proved to run best on our hypervisor and better than Citrix and VMware's. And that's independent testing that's been done by both Citrix and Quest. So we're confident that we can get the most number of Windows 7 machines, and it's all about density, on our hypervisor, as well as provide the best naturally enlightened options for it. And then finally in the bottom right there, our application virtualization, so AppV, that's provided to stream applications into both presentation virtualization and desktops, physical and virtual. So it's a very versatile tool. And for those who have already bought RDS, or remote desktop services, terminal services, CALs, if you like, so if you're already using presentation virtualization, or you're already a Citrix user and you've bought those CALs, since about 2008 we provided AppV as part of that. So chances are, if you've got the RDS CAL, you've got the right to use AppV. So if you're not doing that today, I'd certainly recommend that you have a look at doing that. So two common questions that I normally get at this point when I present to people is if I don't go with a virtual desktop, so if I stay with a physical desktop, am I going to lose these features? That all sounds great. That gives me so much flexibility. It gives me flexibility with applications, users, operating systems. But if I go physical, am I going to lose some of these? And secondly, if I do go with a virtual desktop, so that all sounds great, and I'm prepared to make the investment into virtual desktops and the infrastructure that's required, is it actually going to be suitable for all of my users? And I'll answer that by going through some scenarios of saying, where these are used and where these use cases are, and actually where there's a really good mix. So if we look at some different types of users, and you may have some of these users in your organization, you might have none of some and a lot of the other, but broadly they break into these areas. So task users who use the same applications all the time, office users who maybe just come in, want to roam a bit but work at a PC, mobile like me who's rarely in the office, people who want to work from home, and then third-party people who come in. Because I can guarantee if you give one option, it's not going to fit your different users with different needs and different desktops. So if I look at task workers and we take someone who does the same job day in, day out, they go to the same applications, maybe a line of business application. I mean, this is often called call center workers, but it could well be people who are just consuming the same applications day in, day out. So for them, moving to this environment might mean, well, we don't actually need to give them a new desktop. We could give them Windows Thin PC, or we could give them, a machine and boot up or something like that to a client kind of environment. So we don't have to worry too much around the local machine. What we can then do is provide to them, a session as we've been doing for many years through remote desktop service or terminal service, that line of business application. But we can also apply those group policies. And what does that mean? We've got centralized management, which is one of the main benefits. We've got easy deployment. We haven't got the problem whereby people are getting different things on different days. We've got a consistent experience, and we can extend the life of old hardware. And there's lots of people who find this a really, really good use case for their organization. And that's using presentation virtualization. Another scenario is an office worker. So this might be somebody who's in the office a lot, or in the office all the time rather, but they want a bit more of a richer experience. They probably want some local applications and the ability to roam. So how can we do this? Well, we can provide Windows 7 on the desktop. That's, as it was shown through the physical deployment, we can do that. And we can deploy applications. So we can take that application virtualization, that streaming of applications that we had in a virtual world, and pass that to a physical world. So this is where it starts to cross over. We can also pass through group policy and settings that we do, which are persistent. And maybe they also need access to that line of business application that the task workers needed access to. So again, we can mix and match with these. So again, it's flexible, and the end user gets a rich user experience. It's quite easy to roam between PCs and move around. But again, applications, a line of business application is central, and the applications are easy to upgrade and downgrade with that V. With regard to a mobile worker, so someone who's rarely in the office, probably giving them a virtual desktop isn't the best, because working on 3G or no connection is a really bad experience when it comes to desktops. And certainly if there's no connection, no one will thank you for giving them a virtual desktop that they can't get access to. So having a traditional Windows 7 device, and I showed lots of devices at the beginning of new devices that we're bringing out, we can provide AppV. So even though they're not online, we can provide those same streamed applications to them that they can take offline, and when they connect back, they're going to get updated, as well as all of the group policies that are persistent as well with folder redirection. So when they're in the office, the files are backed up. When they're offline, they're still available. So again, great for offline use. Again, flexible. The user gets a rich experience because they've still got Windows 7 running locally. They don't have to connect to something over a poor connection. But we also use BitLocker. So we also encrypt the drive, which came with Vista and is will be part of Windows moving forwards, that we have full disk encryption through TPM chips or other means, and the ability to fully encrypt that device. So regardless of what happens to that, no one can steal the data. And again, it's easy to migrate the users because the applications are streamed and cached there, and group policy and folder redirection keeps those files away. So then we come on to this one of the key stakes of the consumerization of IT, which is this bring your own computer. Many organizations have said for years, well, we don't really want to manage a car fleet. We'll give you the money and you can go and buy your own car, manage it. It's totally up to you. It's your responsibility. And times have changed where that's now applicable to PCs. So some organizations give their staff an allowance each month to say, here's an amount for you to buy and manage your PC. Once you bought that PC, we'll give you a business desktop that you can connect to. And it's totally up to you what you want to do with it and what you want to buy, but it's up to you to manage it. So bringing your own computer is something that's been really popular, and actually it's now becoming bring your own device. So actually it doesn't need to be a computer, it can be any device to connect to, as long as it follows common standards and it can access the web and access these resources. But alternatively, there's also the use for home PC use, and this is often a case for DR planning and people on snow days or epidemics not being able to get to work, or work just being locked and security being down, where you can't enter the building, everything's up but you can't get to it. Being able to send people home and say, use your home PC that most people now tend to have. So how do we enable that? Well, through this non-managed PC, whether it be a device that's been bought or an emergency device, if you like, we can put these group policy and folder redirection into a machine that's running in a data center. So have a virtual desktop that's running there, and maybe even have applications that are pushed there from AppV and also from Remote App. As long as the desktop has access to the internet, they come to a portal and they get access to their desktop. So this is great. As I mentioned, for home emergency use, it's really, really powerful and allows people to work from anywhere and use their own devices. And it means the right apps to the right people at the right time. But again, there's no data going onto that unmanaged PC. All the information is kept in the data center or in the centralized location. So it's secure, it's compliant, and it's also centrally managed. So if it needs patching, that's done in the server room. It's not done out on these people's machines. And the two environments are very, very separate. And then the final one is around contractors, so people who are brought into the organization who maybe do some work for us. We want to give them an environment, maybe access to it. They might bring their own machines. We might provide them with a machine, and we want them to have access within your four walls to give access to the systems. So that same Windows 7 virtual desktop idea that we gave to the bring your own device user, we can wrap up and then deploy down to their desktop, either booting or repurpose the desktop. So you can kind of pick a mix between all of these things, and Microsoft's strategy for doing this is all about choice, because to get all of this information together, it's all about choice for IT and it's about choice for the user. So users can choose which applications to get from where, so you can suddenly embrace this consumerization of IT. And IT can choose what they want to publish and to whom and to where. So if devices aren't up to date, or the firewall's not right, or it's, there's patches missing, then you're not getting access. So it provides choice for IT and choice for the user to embrace this. Now there's something else that I want to cover is our alliance with Citrix. So Microsoft has been working with Citrix for many years, almost all of certainly Citrix is live with terminal server, delivering out desktops. And what we're now working together on is an alliance where we will deliver a solution between us, because we realize that to fill the gaps that we have in our solution and to bolster the capabilities of Citrix, it's better if we work together. So from a Microsoft point of view, we're the leader for desktops. We've got we've been making Windows, as I said at the beginning, for 27 odd years. We know how to deliver the desktop. We've also got a hypervisor that's optimized, so our hypervisor can run more VMs than other hypervisors when it comes to Windows 7. We also understand the end-to-end user management of virtual and physical assets, and our cloud strategy is to do that either in customers' data centers or in our data center. The choice is up to you. So that's where we come from. From Citrix's point of view, they've been delivering virtual desktops for years through presentation virtualization and latterly through their desktop virtualization solutions. They have a fantastic experience with their high definition experience for networks, and they can also go beyond VDI, so they can start brokering out some other solutions as well that we don't do. And kind of what we bring between us is the ability to bring our Windows devices or our Windows experience and service to devices that aren't ours, so to Macs, iPads, smartphones, and anything that can host the Citrix receiver, even on a BlackBerry if you want to consume a Windows desktop on a BlackBerry. So what we've done is we've come up with a solution stack to break these three areas together around operating system, application, and user state. And the slides will be available after this, obviously, but this is kind of our joint stack of where we're going. Now, some of these products are going to go end of life because they're being consolidated into either the other vendors or they've been consolidated into one. But this is our kind of stack for the virtualization platform, how we deliver the desktop, how we deliver the application, and then how we manage that so that we've got a single solution that we can take out to customers. So that covers off the physical and virtual, and whether I should look at physical and or virtual, my choices for applications, my choices for users, where my users are, and extending it beyond Windows devices with Citrix. So once we've got to the point of we've made the decision about deployment, how are we going to move this forward and how are we going to get the most out of it, we come on to optimization. And what does optimization really mean? Does that mean, can I get the most out of my machines? Am I sweating the most out of the memory in it? Is the disk full? How am I get the most out of it? And most customers I speak to measure optimization by how productive they can make their users. So what can I get for my users to do quicker, faster, better, and if I need to change something, then I will. So this section now is around how can I make my users more productive. So the first part is around user productivity in the interface. We brought a whole load of graphical and aesthetic changes to Windows, which are very subtle but allow for an awful lot of productivity. So things like jump lists that you can see there in the top left, allowing me to jump into applications without actually going into them. So yeah, that saves a few clicks, but over a period of time that all adds up. And the ability to drag applications, so I've got PowerPoint there, how I can move applications around and documents around there. We have a flick through the window in the top left there, top right rather, which shows all the windows there. So again, it manages my desktop. I've got my windows that are open, my sort of arrow peak at the bottom there, so I can see what's in my windows, what's going on there, and see live what's going on in my applications. And then down the bottom, we've listened to people wanting to choose their own sort of taxonomy for how we search for things. So in some places people call it a lid, some people call it the top of a laptop. So by typing that in, I can search very easily, and that's integrated not only into search within the machine, but we can put in other providers as well. Now a little gem that's in there, which not a lot of people use, is the problem steps recorder. And this allows people to, in effect, start record and then work through a process of maybe installing an application or going through a problem they're having. They can add comments, and when they click stop, they get a nice file they can send off to the help desk. So this allows people who are either maybe remote, who can't be shadowed, to record things and record problems and send those off. But they can also be used by IT to record, this is how you do things, so for training, and also for IT, this is how I document installing application X or so on and so forth. So, and there are lots of little things like that put in. Problem steps recorder is something that not many people know about, and it makes a big difference to them. So if you haven't seen it already, please, I urge you to go and have a look. In terms of then, how can we optimize the desktop? We have something called the Microsoft Desktop Optimization Pack, or MDOP. And MDOP is a collection of tools which has recently evolved. Some have come in and some have come out. And this tool set is designed to help customers get the very best out of Windows 7. So if we start at the top with asset management, and maybe you're on XP, maybe you're on Vista, or maybe you're on Windows 7, and you kind of, first of all, the first thing is I need to know what's out there. I need to know what applications are installed, and I need to know, who's licensed and how we stand. So we have something called the Asset Inventory Service, which is a client which sits on a desktop and securely communicates back to our cloud, where we have a database of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of applications. And it's all secure. We scan, the client scans a device, sends the information up, and we provide you with a portal showing you what's installed on that device. So it's a great place to start with what applications have I got on which devices. We then move into policy control. So I've done that. Maybe I've even deployed Windows now. How can I get the best out of group policy? One of the big criticisms of group policy was that someone can make a slight change and it ruins a lot, or makes it can make a big impact from a small change. So we brought around an advanced group policy management, which is a way to bring in change control and reviewer and editor rights for group policy. So it's not just a case of ticking a box and off it goes. We can bring in some control around that. And we also integrated our BitLocker tools into this. So we've also got within MDOP the ability to deploy, manage, and monitor BitLocker implementations. And BitLocker, as I mentioned, is our full disk encryption that's available to encrypt the disk on desktops and laptops, and this is our way of centrally managing that. Then as we move down to the bottom, how do we then, we've rolled it out, how do we then reduce our support costs? And we have something called the Diagnostics and Recovery Toolset. And this is, again, a collection of tools which allows us to get access to a physical machine where maybe it's not booting to Windows. We want to run some tasks such as running antivirus or formatting a drive or changing the admin password. So it's that kind of utility CD that, as an engineer, I used to have to get me out of a hole. That's what we've put into that tool set. And then as we come around to compatibility and management, I've talked around AppV and MedV, so this is how we can deliver applications. So again, AppV, great for app-to-app incompatibility, MedV, great for operating system to application incompatibility. So MDOP as a suite allows us to really optimize the desktop and start to move that forwards beyond just installing the desktop and letting the users get on with it. We can really control it and move that forwards. Certainly something that is our strategy, and what many customers get benefits from is maintaining that investment. You don't buy a car and not get it serviced. This is the same kind of analogy. We have a tool whereby we can go and make sure that we manage our desktops. So first of all, we can deploy patches. So this is quite important. We bring out patches. Third parties bring out patches. How can we deploy those in a managed way where we know that it's been deployed and we can do it quickly and efficiently with the less disruption to the user? So we can deploy patches, both Microsoft and third party, from Configuration Manager, from the future from System Center into our desktop devices. We can also deploy these applications. Now that's a case of installing the applications as we would normally, or by using streaming technology like AppV, where we can integrate in, and we can do that as well. But we've also got integration here into Citrix. So using the connector, we can also provision Citrix applications. So again, anything with the desktop and applications, System Center is our way of doing this. In terms of compliance, which of my machines are up to date, which of my machines have my security baseline, so which of my machines are running the right patches, the right firewall, is the firewall on, and my patches up to date. We can have compliance there, so we can run a compliance check against those and make sure that they are compliant. We do software and hardware auditing and metering. So not only can we find out what applications are installed, both ours and third party, but we can also find out who's using them and where, both in a terminal services environment and on the physical desktops. So we can import Microsoft licensing and third-party licensing details into System Center, and it will tell us which applications are being used where and how many licenses we're using from a CAL point of view and from a product point of view. We also do hardware inventory as well, so we can find out processors and RAM and any amount of information around these desktops out there as well. So we do a whole load of information around that. Recently we rolled in our desktop antivirus product into System Center as well. So we've got the ability with the engine that we bought a number of years ago from Sabari that we've been growing, that's in Microsoft Security Essentials, it's in our enterprise product. We've just provided, we provide it for the desktop. So again, our security teams, our antivirus teams sit with the product teams, and we know what to scan and how to get the best out of Windows without every time there's a scan the machine is unusable for half an hour while it's doing a check. So we know how to do that best, and we've got that now built into System Center. Something that's is very prominent and popular is around power management as well. So how can I apply power management to Windows 7 to make sure that I'm being very aggressive out of hours? So after 5 p.m. I'm going to start shutting devices and turning on screensavers sooner and turning off hardware devices than I would be in the day. So we can put these power management policies and be very, very clear and very useful, very effective with those. But it's not just for desktops. So we can do these with servers as well. So System Center is also a tool for managing servers as well as desktops. So maintain your investment. Windows Intune is also our start of putting Configuration Manager into the cloud. So this is written on our Azure platform and gives people the ability to manage from a web console desktops as well. So some components of Configuration Manager in there around with the malware, updates, monitoring PCs, one-touch remote assistance, hardware inventory, and the policies as well. And because it's all web-based, as long as the machine's online, it can be controlled. One of the big things around this is it does give you software assurance rights for Windows Client when a machine is in subscription. So that means that I can put Windows Intune subscription onto my XP machines, and I then have SA rights in order to deploy Windows 7 Enterprise. So that's how we can get the most out of that. How do we then get the most out of the users? And it kind of depends where your users work from. If you think back to my scenarios, we had a task worker, an office user, a mobile worker, and it would be nice if it was kind of in those clear 5 pots. But people tend to work from anywhere, and work is kind of now being things outside just 9 to 5. People want to be able to work from anywhere. So whether it's halfway down a mountain and they want to be able to get their email and get an application, and they do, or they're in a hotel room and they just want to get access to email or maybe check reports for the next day. In the corporate headquarters, that's probably where most people would work in the main offices, at branch offices or other people's offices, maybe even in a coffee shop or even at home. So these are places that people will work from, and gone are the days of people just coming to work and working. If we can get, if we can provide the ability for people to work from anywhere, they'll be more productive. And it might be that they work less hours in the office, but they'll do more hours in net total because of the ability to work from anywhere. So how can we, what can we do to the infrastructure within Windows to give us the ability to enable these users to work from anywhere and to efficiently work and increase their productivity? So the first thing is direct access, something that we brought out in 2008. And the best way to think about this is it's an always-on VPN. Kind of gone are the days of needing to have a dialer that dials up and a key to go off, if you like. This is something that's always on. And I'll walk you through this from a user and an IT perspective. So a user connects a machine at a hotel or a coffee bar or something like that. They start the machine up, they log in, and they go for a corporate resource. So let's say they're trying to get to your G drive, or they're going to a SharePoint site, or maybe Exchange if you haven't published it, something that's on your network. So it goes off over the internet that they've just got onto, and the connection is made to the resource. So from a user's point of view, it's as easy as that. That they haven't had to click off any dialers, they haven't had to do anything in between. So the user feels really productive. Now that's just looking at that looks quite terrifying. So let me look at what it looks like from an IT point of view. So first of all, the user connects the machine at the hotel, so the machine is authenticated. What's actually happening there is when the user's logging in, they're putting in a PIN number, and this is actually something we do at Microsoft. So they put in a PIN number just to get up to boot, and that means that the disk is encrypted. If someone doesn't have that key, the machine isn't going to even be able to boot. If they take the disk out, put it in another machine, they're not going to be able to read it. So we've got control of that. Users can log in with a smart card, so you can add in smart card or two-factor authentication if you use one-time passwords, but also having a trusted certificate that expires once a week. So there's quite a bit of security there that's actually fairly invisible to the user. So they have to put a PIN number in and they have to log in, but apart from that, they've authenticated to the device. When they then connect back to the corporate headquarters, the health of the device is evaluated, and in fact more than that, the location. Is it a trusted subnet? Is it coming from somewhere we don't want it to? Is the machine up to date? Is it on the domain still? And we can check the health of the machine. And once the health is evaluated, we then grant access to the resources that health is allowed to. So in other words, if that device connects and hasn't got the antivirus up to date, for instance, then it might be that they can read email but they can't send or download email. And we can be quite granular over what kind of access people get. And if you're coming from a network that's not trusted, maybe you can just see the corporate intranet, you can't get onto finance systems. And you can be very prescriptive about what people can and can't see. And it's a way of extending out your LAN. But the important thing here is that the machine is managed by IT. Actually what happens before the user logs in is a tunnel is made back to the corporate headquarters, and in effect when you do Control-Delete you're getting a real-life login rather than cached. But it also means that if I've got System Center sat over in my server environment, I can then manage that device. So as long as it's on, and as long as it's on the internet, I can get control of that device and manage it. So it's got two benefits there. It's a great benefit for users and a great benefit for IT. And this is how do we then provide this out to non-Windows devices and non-Windows, because all we need to be able to do this is Windows 7 and Server 2008 R2. The benefit of using the Forefront Unified Access Gateway from our security suite is it allows us down-level clients, down-level servers, and more health. So and our our roadmap on that is getting stronger. So that makes the direct access much stronger. So the second one of these is then around how do we make users more productive at branch offices. Branch offices are very prolific. People want, again, don't want to travel into central offices for geographical reasons. People have branch offices. So we came up with a solution for branch offices to do, in effect, a WAN caching. And what this allows us to do is a case of turning on branch cache on a Windows Server 2008 R2 server and turning it on at desktops. And in effect, what this means is when somebody connects to a file, they'll download it. So it supports SMB and normal files, file copies and so on and so forth, HTTP and SMB. So when I download a file, I've got to download it from the central office. So that if that connection is really poor, then I'm going to have to deal with that. But the second person who comes in can then either get that from me, or if I've got a large enough office with another server, maybe a hosted cache, and that means that I can start caching documents locally without needing to copy them. So it accelerates this download of files and makes user productivity at branch offices. And again, all you need is Windows Server 2008 R2 and Windows 7. So for all of those things that I've spoken around there in terms of productivity, what are the things that I need? So first of all, obviously Windows 7, we need a desktop operating system in order to gain access to these and log in. Secondly, Server 2008 R2, but chances are that's already there, but the ability to provide some of those functions through direct access and branch cache are there. We then talked about the optimization pack. So again, that gives us the ability to really move forward with productivity on the desktop. And if we're looking at extending out direct access, then unified access gateways there. So System Center, you can kind of see it has made its way into a lot of this. Our strategy is to make System Center the tool for desktop management, and all the desktop management tasks you'd want to do with antivirus, remote control, asset inventory, operating system deployment, you name it for a desktop. It's our strategy to put that into System Center. And then maybe for off-domain machines, or if there's a System Center isn't going to be suitable, then there's Windows Intune, which is our web-based tool for doing that. Now, just to wrap up before we come to the end, I want to allow some time for questions. It's very important to note the business versions of Windows 7. So there are a number of SKUs, and I'm just concentrating on the business versions here. So Professional is available both as retail and OEM. So if you buy a machine or you buy a full package product, you can buy Professional or Ultimate. If you buy through a volume license agreement, you can buy Professional or Enterprise. And most people, when they buy an OEM machine, they get Professional unless they specify it, and certainly volume people go for Professional. But if you want some of these features that I talked about, so if you want to look at BitLocker, AppLocker, Direct Access, Branch Cache, things like XP mode and VDI enhancements, then you need to be using Enterprise or Ultimate. I know a lot of customers who've rolled out Professional wanted to then do BitLocker and realized, I can't. So I'd certainly look at the versions before, if you haven't already, moving ahead with these. So that's really there's a couple of slides I want to go through. And sort of it's Windows 7 on the horizon, or end of the road for Windows 7. We've obviously made a lot of talk about Windows 8, and there's lots of information around how we'll have a change. There's a developer preview available. There's going to be a beta very, very shortly. And we're changing it for our Metro look, and this is well documented everywhere. But our strategy is to have Windows 8 for all PCs. So whether we have a desktop, a laptop, a slate, a tablet,